Welcome to SRBX's Construction Zone podcast, where we discuss emerging issues and bridge politics and policies that impact the construction industry here in Sacramento and throughout the state of California. I am your host, Damon Conklin, Director of Governmental Affairs at the Sacramento Regional Builders Exchange. Today, our guest, Wendy Nelson, Director of Strategic Partnerships at MarketOne Builders, will share with us her thoughts on rent control policies. Welcome, Wendy, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Damon, for having me.
Tell us a little bit about MarketOne Building and your responsibilities.
MarketOne Builders is a commercial construction company. We're located and headquartered here in Sacramento, California. Our specialties include life science, ground-up industrial, tenant improvements. We've done a number of award-winning office improvements here in Sacramento, some award-winning projects in the Bay Area. We recently decided to answer a call to action to get involved in the multifamily sector. Then Mayor Johnson, a few years ago, put a call out for 10,000 new units in Sacramento. And to help meet this challenge, we decided to expand our portfolio to include multifamily construction. So since then, we've taken on a number of multifamily complexes. We're bidding a number of those that will be done in the future. And we're really excited to try to help out with the housing crisis here in California.
As you know, earlier this year, there were several efforts throughout the state, different municipalities collecting signatures to place rent control on their respective ballots, and Sacramento was one of them.
Yes, here locally, SEIU 1000 filed enact rent control locally here in the city of Sacramento. And what that did is scare a lot of folks from doing any building whatsoever. This was a particularly egregious example of rent control, in fact, the most egregious in the state. Unfortunately, it qualified for the November 2020 ballot. So the issue, regardless of what happens with Prop 10, is not dead. So opponents of this SEIU measure locally are planning some tactics to try to keep it off of the ballot because it's so bad.
And what are the proponents of rent control policies saying?
Basically, rent control proponents are saying that housing is too expensive. Well, the reason why housing is too expensive is because there's not enough inventory. We're trying to build multifamily housing, and as I said, even with the threat locally here in Sacramento of the rent control measure, it's put a very chilling effect on the impetus to build new multifamily units.
Okay, and what are the key factors of the costs for building multifamily housing?
Well, obviously the land, first and foremost. Some of the significant factors, of course, beyond the land is just the ability to drawn up and get the permitting and fees and all of that taken care of. And those are very costly and very time consuming. So it's a precarious balance to build a multifamily complex between the development and entitlement, as well as the ability of the local government to quickly issue the permits and whatnot, and especially then the banking. You've got the banking side of it, and rent control, just again, the threat of rent control has put a damper on even banks being willing to lend. Just the threat of rent control has really put a dampening effect on the building of new multifamily units.
What can local and state governments do to help developers and construction companies build more affordable housing?
There's a few things that would really help increase the supply of multifamily housing. Of course, making land more available, easing government restrictions on getting the building done, and most importantly, probably, is the labor costs. We've got a situation where labor costs have gone through the roof, and that is due to the fact that there are very few people available. The workforce is very lean. It's difficult to get a project done because you're just not sure as a builder whether you're going to have the bodies to actually staff the project. So this is where maybe government can come in. Local governments really could work more hand in hand with the construction industry as well as developers to try to understand all that goes into the process.
You've been an active leader on behalf of the construction industry, attended many public workshops, met with elected officials here in Sacramento on this issue, representing the construction industry. What would your advice or recommendation for those that are interested to learn more about this issue and how it impacts our industry?
Definitely be cautious of knee-jerk reactions. I think the efforts here locally have really caused, even though the SEIU measure is a bad idea, our mayor has gotten on board with the idea of rent control being a necessary component of basically a necessary solution to solving the housing crisis. And rent control won't build a single new house. It won't reduce their costs. It won't make this situation any better. The only thing that will make it better is more inventory. So they need to be cautious about acting too quickly just to try to solve the problem when the problem is really more long range. Local governments can solve the problem really, again, goes back to the streamlining of the process in the first place.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Damon.